Have you ever paused to truly consider the air you breathe? It's something, well, many of us just take for granted, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's vital, obviously, but easy to overlook the scaffolding that supports it.
Exactly. And behind that clean breath, there's this intricate legal framework designed, to keep our skies clear.
Those clear skies don't just happen, definitely not. They're the result of persistent legislative effort over decades.
Right. So today, we're diving deep into a real cornerstone of that effort, the Clean Air Act 1993.
Mm.
Now, if you're thinking, 1993, that sounds a bit dated, well, you might be in for a surprise.
Yeah, it's not some dusty relic sitting on a shelf.
Not at all. This act is constantly evolving, a piece of legislation that profoundly shapes our environment and actually our daily lives, even today.
That's spot on. For this deep dive, we've gone straight to the source material, the actual text of the Clean Air Act 1993.
Including all those amendments you mentioned.
Oh, yes, its extensive history of amendments. Our mission really is to extract the most important insights, unpack its core provisions.
And help you understand how it really impacts the world around you, the choices we make.
Precisely.
And what I found particularly fascinating looking at this is that while it was formally passed in 93, it's actually a consolidation.
Right, pulling together older laws.
Yeah, much older laws, specifically from 1956 and 1968. It's like a legislative spring clean, almost,
A good way to put it, bundling decades of existing rules.
into one comprehensive, updated document. And what's more, it's been amended over 40 times,
It keeps changing.
with the most recent known updates noted for April 2025. This is, without a doubt, a living, breathing legal document.
It really is.
So let's start at the beginning. The act kicks off by tackling something everyone can see: dark smoke.
Uh-huh. The really visible stuff.
What exactly does the law consider dark smoke?
Okay, so the act gets quite specific here. It defines dark smoke as anything as dark as or darker than shade 2 on the Ringelmann chart.
The Ringelmann chart. Sounds quite old-fashioned.
Well, it is. It's a visual scale of smoke density from the late 19th century. But referencing it, specifically the 1956 version.
Gave a clear standard.
Exactly. A clear, quantifiable, repeatable standard. Crucial for enforcement, moving beyond just, it looks bad.
It is bad by this measure.
Right. And interestingly, the courts don't always need an actual side-by-side comparison. If prescribed methods are followed, they can still determine if it counts as dark smoke.
So it brought a degree of scientific rigor, even back then, to what seems like just looking at smoke.
Pretty much, yeah.
But who exactly is held responsible if this dark smoke is emitted?
Well, for dark smoke coming from the chimney of a building, the responsibility typically falls on the occupier of that building.
Okay, and the penalties?
They vary. For a private house, it's up to level 3 on the standard scale, currently up to £1,000.
And for other buildings, businesses?
For others, it's up to level 5, which can mean a much more substantial fine, potentially up to £5,000.
And if it's from, say, a specific factory boiler?
If the smoke is from a chimney serving a fixed boiler or industrial plant, then the person in possession of that equipment is liable.
Got it. And what about industrial or trade premises more broadly? Does it only apply to smoke from chimneys there?
No, it definitely casts a wider net. For industrial or trade premises, dark smoke is prohibited from any part of the site, not just chimneys.
Ah, okay. So anywhere on the property.
Yes. And here, both the occupier and anyone who causes or permits the emission can be held liable. The law recognizes that industrial processes can create smoke in different ways.
And the penalties reflect that.
They do. The penalty for summary conviction in England and Wales is significantly higher here, up to £20,000.
Wow. Okay. That's serious.
It underscores how seriously industrial pollution was viewed even then. The act even presumes an emission occurred if material is burned likely to cause dark smoke, unless you can prove otherwise.
That sounds incredibly strict. Are there any allowances, any defenses if something, genuinely goes wrong?
Yes, the act isn't completely inflexible. For dark smoke from chimneys, there are specific defenses laid out.
Such as?
For example, if the smoke was solely due to lighting up a cold furnace and you took all practical steps to minimize it, that can be a defense.
Okay, that makes sense.
Or if it resulted from an unforeseen furnace failure and it wasn't reasonably possible to prevent the smoke after the failure.
Right, unavoidable accidents.
And finally, if you had to use unsuitable fuel because the right stuff was genuinely unobtainable.
But you have to prove you couldn't get it.
Yes, and that you chose the least unsuitable option available and, again, took all practicable steps to minimize the smoke.
So it shows a pragmatic understanding of Well, real-world operational challenges.
I think so. It balances the need for control with practicality.
So right from the start, the Act established a robust framework, targeting clear sources of pollution, but also acknowledging the practicalities. It wasn't just banning things, it was about managing them.
That's a good summary of the initial approach, yes.
Okay, so once they had a handle on visible smoke, lawmakers turned their attention to the less obvious pollutants.
Right. The Act broadens its scope significantly. Particulate matter like grit and dust, even fumes and gases.
So what new requirements did it introduce for furnaces?
Well, for new non-domestic furnaces, think businesses or industry, you now had to give notice to the local authority before installation.
Okay, a heads up, basically.
And critically, these new furnaces had to be designed, so far as practicable, to operate continuously without emitting smoke.
So far as practicable, that phrase seems important.
It is, and we'll see it again. If the local authority approved the plans, that satisfied the smokeless requirement.
And penalties for not doing this.
Yes, a fine for failing to give notice, and potentially a more substantial level 5 penalty for installing a furnace that isn't capable of smokeless operation.
And this is for industrial setups, not my home furnace.
Correct. This section specifically targets non-domestic applications.
Got it. And how did the Act tackle the even finer particles? Grit and dust, those can cause real health issues.
Yeah, even if they aren't dark smoke. This is where the Act starts to get more technically demanding.
How so?
The Secretary of State gained the power to set precise limits on the amount of grit and dust that could be emitted from non-domestic furnace chimneys.
Actual emission limits.
Yes. Exceeding these limits became an offense, and the occupier could face a level 5 fine.
But was there any leeway there?
Yes, there's a key defense. If the occupier could prove they used the best practicable means to minimize the emission.
There's that phrase again, best practicable means. What does that entail?
It's crucial. It means doing what's reasonably achievable, considering things like local conditions, the financial implications, and crucially, the current state of technical knowledge.
So it implies continuous improvement as technology gets better.
Exactly. It's not just about meeting a fixed, static standard forever. It pushes for progress.
So not just setting limits, but pushing for technological solutions. Which brings us to arrestment plants. What are those?
Arrestment plants are essentially pollution control devices. Think filters, scrubbers, electrostatic precipitators, systems designed to capture grit and dust before they go up the chimney.
Yeah, who needed these?
The Act mandated approved arrestment plants for larger non-domestic furnaces, especially those burning pulverized fuel or burning large quantities over 45 kilos per hour of other solid matter, or using over 366 kilowatts of liquid or gas.
So the bigger emitters.
Generally, yes. Though interestingly, even some domestic furnaces needed them if they burned very specific types or large amounts of fuel, like over a ton per hour of solid fuel or waste.
And these needed approval.
Yes, local authority approval was required for the plant itself, though exemptions were possible sometimes.
This sounds like it generates a lot of data, or at least it should. Does the Act cover measuring and monitoring?
Absolutely. The Act gives significant powers to local authorities for data collection. They can direct occupiers of large furnaces to measure and record their emissions.
Make them install monitoring gear.
Yes, and even require them to adapt their chimneys for it. Non-compliance could lead to level 5 fines or even cumulative daily penalties if they kept refusing.
Daily penalties. Ouch.
It's a strong incentive. And what's also neat is that occupiers of smaller furnaces could actually request the local authority to come and take measurements for them.
Oh, really? That's useful.
And local authorities could also demand information from occupiers about their furnaces, the type of fuel used, how much they consumed. Penalties applied for giving false info too.
So, serious about data collection for enforcement and understanding.
Very much so. Vital for tracking trends and ensuring compliance.
And it seems chimney height also became a factor. How does that fit in?
It did. Chimney height is critical for dispersing emissions effectively. Sections 14 to 16 require approval for the height of chimneys serving certain larger furnaces.
Why? What's the goal?
The goal is to ensure that the smoke, grit, dust, gases, or fumes are dispersed high enough so they don't become prejudicial to health or a nuisance to people nearby.
So preventing localized pollution spots.
Exactly. The authority considers factors like the chimney's purpose, nearby buildings, local topography, ground levels, and so on.
And approval could come with strings attached.
Yes, it could come with conditions like setting limits on the rate or quality of emissions from that specific chimney. This also applies more broadly to chimneys in building plans, not just those serving furnaces.
A comprehensive approach to dispersion, then.
It seems so. What's remarkable here, I think, is seeing the act evolve from just looking at dark smoke to needing complex kit, collecting data, even dictating chimney design.
Reflecting a growing scientific understanding.
Definitely. A growing understanding of air pollution in its various forms and the increasingly sophisticated ways needed to actually tackle it.
Now, here's where the Act really starts to impact our daily lives, right? Reaching into neighborhoods, even homes, with smoke control areas.
Yes, this is a major part of the Act's direct impact on communities.
How do these areas get declared, and what does it mean if you live in one?
Okay, so local authorities have the power to designate their whole district, or just part of it, as a smoke control area through a formal order.
Legally defined zone.
Precisely. And these orders can be quite flexible. They can have different rules for different parts of the area or exempt specific buildings, types of fireplaces, boilers, even with certain conditions attached.
How does the public get involved?
There's significant public involvement required. The proposed order has to be published in official gazettes, like the London or Edinburgh Gazette, and in local newspapers.
So people know what's happening.
Yes, and they have a minimum of 6 weeks to raise objections. The order can't usually come into force for at least 6 months after it's made.
And what if a council isn't doing enough about pollution?
Well, the Secretary of State actually has the power, under Section 19, to compel a local authority to create smoke control areas if they feel it's needed and the authority hasn't acted sufficiently.
So a power from the top down if needed.
Yes.
Now, I understand there have been some really significant recent changes here, creating different rules for England and Wales.
This is a crucial and, frankly, fascinating development. It came from the Environment Act 2021 and took effect in May 2022.
So quite recent.
Very. It essentially created two distinct regulatory paths for how smoke control areas are enforced and how fuel is regulated. One path for Wales, another for England.
Okay, let's break that down. What's the situation in Wales?
In Wales, the traditional approach largely continues. Emitting smoke from a chimney within a smoke control area remains a criminal offense.
So you could end up in court.
Potentially, yes. If you're the occupier or the person in possession of the appliance connected to the chimney, you could face a level 3 fine.
What's the main defense there?
The primary defense is proving that the smoke wasn't caused by using any fuel other than an authorized fuel.
And authorized fuel is.
It's a fuel type that's specifically on a list kept and published by the Welsh ministers. Think certain types of anthracite or smokeless manufactured fuels.
Are there exemptions?
Yes. The Welsh ministers can exempt a specific classes of fireplaces if they're satisfied they can burn other fuels without causing substantial smoke. Maybe certain efficient wood burners, for instance.
And what about buying or selling fuel in Wales?
It's also an offense in Wales to buy what they call solid fuel, which basically means non-authorized solid fuel if you intend to use it in a non-exempt building or fireplace within a smoke control area.
So you can't even acquire it legally for that purpose.
Correct. And retailers commit an offense if they sell such fuel for delivery to those places.
Unless they didn't know.
There's a defense for the seller if they can show they reasonably believed the building or the fuel itself was exempt or approved.
Yeah.
But generally, Wales sticks to the criminal offense route, focused on authorized fuel lists.
Okay, that's Wales.
Yeah.
Clear criminal framework. How does England differ now after these 2022 changes?
England has made a pretty significant pivot. They have moved away from criminal convictions for the emission of smoke itself.
So, no court for puffing smoke. What happens instead?
Instead, there's now a system of civil financial penalties. More like getting a parking ticket, perhaps, than a criminal charge.
How does that work in practice?
When a local authority believes smoke has been emitted illegally from a chimney in a smoke control area, they issue a notice of intent to the person they think is responsible.
And that notice says?
It outlines the alleged emission details and proposes a financial penalty. The idea seems to be a quicker, more administrative way to handle it compared to prosecution.
What sort of money are we talking about?
The minimum penalty is currently set at £175 and the maximum is £300, though the Secretary of State can amend these amounts by regulation.
Can you fight it?
Oh, yes. You have 28 days to object to the notice of intent.
On what grounds?
Specific grounds are listed. Maybe you argue no smoke was actually emitted, or the chimney wasn't covered by the order, or crucially, that you weren't the person responsible. Maybe you're the landlord, not the tenant using the fireplace.
What if you know who is responsible?
If you object on the grounds you weren't liable, you're encouraged to provide details of the person you believe is liable if you know them. There's also a catch-all ground, other compelling reasons.
Okay. And after the objection period?
The local authority considers any objections and then issues a final notice if they decide to proceed. This confirms the penalty amount, gives reasons, payment details, and importantly, tells you about your right to appeal to the first-tier tribunal.
So an independent appeal route exists.
Yes. And the local authority also retains the flexibility to withdraw the notice or reduce the penalty at any stage.
Interesting shift. How do the fuel rules work in England now with this penalty system?
They've also been updated. In England, it's now an offense to acquire controlled solid fuel, which means any solid fuel other than an approved fuel if you intend to use it in buildings, fireplaces, or boilers within a smoke control area.
So buying the wrong fuel is still an offense.
Yes, the acquisition itself carries a potential level 3 fine, but there's a really important exception: approved fireplaces.
So if you have the right kind of stove.
Exactly. An approved fireplace is a type that's on a specific list published by the Secretary of State, and it's certified as being capable of burning controlled solid fuel like wood without producing substantial smoke.
So a modern eco-design stove might qualify.
Potentially, yes. You'd need to check the official list. It's also an offense for retailers to sell controlled solid fuel without clearly notifying the buyer about the restrictions on its use.
They have to warn you.
Yes, and it's also an offense to sell it for delivery to a restricted building or premises. Approved fuel, similar to Wales, is defined by being on a published list from the Secretary of State.
Can these rules be relaxed, say in a really cold winter?
Yes, the Secretary of State has the power to temporarily suspend or relax these fuel rules for specific areas in England, particularly in urgent cases, after consulting the local authority.
So, a significant move in England from criminal charges for smoke emission to civil penalties, coupled with updated rules on fuel acquisition, but with exemptions for approved appliances.
That sums it up well. A different approach to enforcement.
Does the Act help people actually adapt their homes to meet these rules, whether in England or Wales?
It does. There are provisions for adaptations and grants. Local authorities can require owners or occupiers of private dwellings in a smoke control area to adapt their fireplaces to avoid contraventions in Wales, or financial penalties in England.
To acquire them, like force them.
They can serve a notice requiring adaptation. And here's a really interesting detail about funding for old private dwellings. Those built or substantially altered before August 15, 1964, local authorities must repay 7/10, so 70% of the approved adaptation costs.
They have to pay 70%.
Yes, for those older homes. And they may choose to repay the remaining 30% as well at their discretion.
What counts as an adaptation?
It's defined quite broadly: converting or replacing a fireplace, altering a chimney, maybe providing special ignition like gas or electric pokers.
Is there help for other types of buildings?
Yes, there are also discretionary grants available for adaptations in churches, chapels, and buildings used by charities, recognizing their unique position.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The Act's reach now extends, quite explicitly, to a type of dwelling you might not immediately think of.
Ah, yes. Moored vessels.
Exactly. Boats.
That's right. Another fascinating addition, again from the Environment Act 2021, introduced rules specifically for moored vessels, but only in England.
So if you live on a canal boat in England in a smoke control area,
Well, if your vessel is affected by a new smoke control order, and, this is the crucial bit, it doesn't have mains electricity or gas supplied at its mooring.
which is common for many boats,
Very common. In that specific situation, the local authority must reimburse the owner or occupier 70% of the approved costs of adapting their heating appliance.
again, that mandatory 70%.
Yeah.
How is it paid?
Get this, it's paid in monthly installments over 6 months.
Monthly. That's unusual.
It is, and the reimbursement is conditional. It continues only as long as the person retains the right to moor there and the vessel isn't absent from the mooring for too long.
Wow. That's incredibly specific.
It really shows the law trying to adapt to different lifestyles and the specific challenges they face regarding clean air. You can't just hook up a boat to gas like a house.
It really highlights how the law has to keep evolving, doesn't it? Moving from these broad bans decades ago to these highly specific regulations for particular communities and well, types of homes.
Absolutely. It does raise interesting questions about enforcement complexity, but also about fairness and recognizing diverse situations.
Okay, moving beyond the nitty-gritty of specific emissions and smoke control areas, the Act also provides a broader framework, right, for general air pollution control and enforcement,
Yes, it looks at sources beyond just chimneys and furnaces.
like fuel itself. What powers exist regarding the content of, say, petrol or heating oil?
The Act grants the Secretary of State significant power here, too. They can make regulations controlling the composition and specifically the sulfur content of motor fuel and oil fuel used in furnaces or engines.
To limit pollution at source.
Exactly. But before making such rules, there's a legal requirement to consult extensively
With who?
with people representing fuel producers, vehicle makers, engine makers, fuel users, and also persons knowledgeable about air pollution, a wide range of stakeholders.
And who enforces these fuel content rules?
It varies. For motor fuel, it's typically the local weights and measures authorities, the same people checking petrol pumps. For oil fuel, it falls to local authorities and the relevant environmental agencies.
Any other specific polluting activities targeted?
Yes, there's a specific offense mentioned in Section 33, burning insulation off cables just to recover the metal inside.
I've heard that can be very polluting.
Extremely. So that's banned, unless it's done as part of a properly permitted industrial process designed to handle the fumes safely.
Got it. What about the Act's role in just gathering information? Research on air pollution.
That's a crucial aspect for long-term management. Part V of the Act empowers local authorities to conduct research, publish information, arrange discussions, even set up exhibitions about air pollution in their area.
Raising public awareness.
And collecting hard data. They can get information on emissions from commercial or industrial premises, though not private homes generally.
How? Can they just demand it?
They can issue written notices requiring information. Or they can go and take direct measurements themselves, sometimes by agreement with the occupier, sometimes using entry powers.
What if a business feels the request is unreasonable? Trade secrets, maybe?
There's an appeals process. An occupier can appeal against an information notice, for instance, if they think it's unreasonable, would reveal a trade secret, or would be unduly expensive to comply with.
And is this collected information kept secret?
Mostly no. Transparency is built in. Local authorities are required to maintain public registers containing the information they gather about emissions and fuel use from premises.
So you can look it up.
Generally, yes. Though genuine trade secrets are specifically excluded from the public register to protect commercial confidentiality.
Does the central government get involved in monitoring?
Yes, the Secretary of State can direct local authorities to measure air pollution levels and transmit the data centrally. They can even provide funding for the capital costs of the necessary equipment. It supports a national picture of air quality. And connecting this to the bigger picture, these provisions for data collection, research, public access, they're fundamental, aren't they, for effective environmental governance?
Allows tracking progress, finding hotspots.
Exactly, and ensures some level of accountability. The Act also tidies up some special cases.
Like what?
Things like colliery spoil banks, those big waste heaps from coal mining. They have specific rules under Section 42 to prevent them from emitting smoke or fumes through spontaneous combustion.
Right, preventing smoldering heaps.
And railway engines have certain dark smoke prohibitions and a general duty to minimize emissions. Even the Crown isn't totally exempt. Government departments and Crown premises generally have to comply or at least report issues to the responsible minister. It shows the intended breadth.
And what about the general enforcement nuts and bolts? How does the Act actually ensure compliance day to day?
Well, there are essential mechanisms. For instance, authorized officers generally have a duty to notify the occupier soon after observing certain smoke offenses. This notification can actually be part of the occupier's defense process later.
Okay, what else?
There's the concept of cumulative penalties for some ongoing offenses. If you're convicted once and you continue the offense, a daily fine can be applied for each day it persists after conviction.
A strong incentive to fix the problem quickly.
Definitely. And that phrase we keep mentioning, practicable means, gets a definition in Section 64.
Let's hear it.
It means reasonably practicable, having regard, amongst other things, to local conditions and circumstances, to the financial implications, and to the current state of technical knowledge.
So it explicitly brings in cost and current technology.
Yes. It highlights the Act's pragmatic approach. It aims high environmentally, but acknowledges real-world feasibility. There are also provisions about powers of entry for authorized officers and for compensation if someone suffers damage because of how those powers were exercised, ensuring a degree of
Right,
fairness.
checks and balances.
Indeed.
So we've journeyed through the Clean Air Act, 1993, from its initial focus on, well, obvious dark smoke,
Through controlling finer dust and fumes, needing specific equipment.
into the complex world of smoke control areas, with those fascinating recent divergences between England and Wales.
And the rules for boats.
Right. And finally, looking at broader controls on fuel content and the vital mechanisms for enforcement and information gathering.
It's clear it's not static.
Definitely not. It's a dynamic, frequently updated piece of law, constantly uptucking to new science, new technologies, and, well, new ways of living. So what does this all mean for you? Well, next time you notice, maybe, a faint wisp of smoke from a neighbor's chimney. Or perhaps just feel the crispness of city air on a clear day.
Or maybe not so crisp.
Or maybe not so crisp. Perhaps you'll think about this intricate legal framework working away, often unseen,
Constantly adapting behind the scenes.
trying to protect our environment, ensure the air we all breathe is cleaner, healthier.
And consider this, how these foundational laws, often sort of hidden from daily view, aren't just about stopping bad things. They actually drive innovation, don't they? In clean energy, in appliance design.
And shape how our towns and cities develop.
In ways we probably rarely appreciate, they force us continually to balance environmental goals with the practicalities of life, of industry. So the thought to leave you with is, what further changes might be on the horizon as our understanding of air pollution, its complex effects, and the technologies to combat it inevitably continue to evolve?